The phone shrilled in Natalie Wilson's ear at 5:30 a.m., yanking her from a dreamless sleep into the harsh reality of another catering emergency. She fumbled for her cell, knocking over a half-empty water glass in the process. "Gourmet Grace Catering, this is Natalie," she answered automatically, her voice scratchy from sleep. "Natalie, thank God you picked up." It was Veronica, her assistant manager, panic evident in her voice. "Marcus just called in sick, food poisoning from his sister's birthday dinner. He won't be able to handle the Reed Foods corporate retreat." Natalie sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. Reed Foods was their biggest client of the season, a 3-day luxury retreat at Pinewood Lodge for 50 executives. The contract was worth more than her last 3 months of business combined. "Okay, don't panic," Natalie said, even as her own heart raced. "I'll handle it myself." But you already have the Wilson wedding consultation today, and reschedule it," Natalie interrupted, already mentally calculating what she needed to pack. "Reed Foods is too important. I can't risk anything going wrong." After hanging up, Natalie showered in record time, her mind racing through the menu plans. Marcus had been preparing for this event for weeks. She'd overseen the planning, of course, but hadn't intended to be on site herself. Now she had 3 hours to get to Pinewood Lodge, a luxury retreat center nestled in the mountains 2 hours away. By 8:45 a.m., Natalie's catering van was loaded with supplies, and she was navigating the winding mountain roads. The morning sun glinted off the autumn foliage, painting the world in fiery oranges and reds. Any other day, she might have appreciated the view. Today, she barely noticed, mentally reviewing the specialized menu she'd helped design for Reed Foods' retreat. The client had been unusually involved in the menu planning, not Reed Foods' procurement department as she'd expected, but the CEO himself, a man she knew only by reputation and a couple of brief phone calls. Alexander Reed had inherited the family business 5 years ago and transformed it from a regional food distributor into a national powerhouse. Forbes had recently featured him as one of their 40 under 40 business innovators, though Natalie recalled mostly the mentions of his dedication to ethical supply chains rather than the accompanying photo. She turned onto the private access road to Pinewood Lodge, the van's tires crunching over gravel. The retreat center appeared around a bend, a sprawling complex of rustic luxury cabins surrounding a grand central lodge built of massive timber and glass. It was exactly the sort of place where companies dropped 6 figures to inspire their executives and forge corporate synergy. Natalie parked near the service entrance, mentally switching into professional mode. She'd sent ahead a message about the change in staffing, so she wasn't entirely surprised to see someone waiting for her at the kitchen entrance, a tall man in casual but obviously expensive clothing. "You must be from Gourmet Grace," he said, stepping forward to help with her bags. "I'm Alex." "Natalie Wilson," she replied, handing him a light bag of linens while she shouldered a heavier tote of specialized equipment. "I'm the owner. Our head chef had an emergency, so I'll be handling the retreat personally." Up close, she couldn't help noticing that Alex was remarkably good-looking, dark hair with a hint of silver at the temples, striking blue eyes, and the kind of jawline that seemed designed for magazine covers. He wore his casual clothes, designer jeans, and a simple gray Henley with the easy confidence of someone who never worried about price tags. The owner herself. "We're honored," he said with a warm smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Let me show you to the kitchen. The staff has already delivered most of your order from yesterday." As they walked through the lodge, Natalie tried to maintain professional focus, but found herself stealing glances at her helper. There was something familiar about him, though she couldn't place it. "So you're with Reed Foods?" she asked, trying to place him in the corporate hierarchy. "You could say that," he replied with a hint of amusement. "I work closely with Alexander Reid." The kitchen was a chef's dream, all gleaming stainless steel, stone countertops, and top-of-the-line equipment. Natalie set down her bags and immediately began surveying the space, mentally arranging her workflow. "Your supplies arrived yesterday," Alex said, gesturing to the walk-in refrigerator. "I had the staff organize everything according to the instructions your team sent over." Natalie raised an eyebrow, impressed. Most clients barely read her preparation requirements, let alone followed them precisely. "Thank you. That's unusually thoughtful." She opened the refrigerator and found everything neatly arranged and labeled. "This will save me hours." "I know how important proper mise en place is," he said, using the culinary term for preparation perfectly. "My grandfather was a chef before he started Reed Foods. He always said the difference between chaos and excellence happens before the first burner is lit." Natalie turned to look at him with newfound interest. "Your grandfather was right. Are you a cook yourself?" "Amateur at best," he said with a self-deprecating smile, "but an enthusiastic eater. I've been looking forward to your menu ever since we finalized it. Especially the local trout with foraged mushroom sauce." "That's tomorrow's dinner," Natalie said, surprised he knew the menu in such detail. "Most clients just leave everything to us." "I'm not most clients," he said simply. "Now, what can I do to help you get set up?" "The executive team arrives in 2 hours for lunch." For a fleeting moment, Natalie considered accepting his help. There was something disarmingly genuine about him, but professionalism prevailed. "That's very kind, but I've got it from here," she said. "I'm sure you have more important things to do than help the caterer unpack." "You might be surprised," he murmured, but stepped back. "I'll check in later to see if you need anything. The staff has been instructed to give you whatever assistance you require." After he left, Natalie began preparing for lunch, a sophisticated but approachable spread of elevated comfort foods designed to energize the executives for their afternoon sessions. As she worked, she found herself thinking about Alex more than she should. There was something compelling about him that went beyond his obvious good looks. He seemed genuinely interested in her work, which was refreshing in a world where caterers were often treated as invisible. 2 hours flew by, and lunch service went smoothly. Natalie remained behind the scenes, directing the lodge staff who served as waiters. She caught glimpses of the executives' men and women in business casual attire, networking over her carefully prepared food. She spotted Alex moving among them confidently, clearly someone of importance. As the executives moved to their afternoon session, Natalie began preparations for the evening meal. She was deep in concentration, reducing a sauce for the main course when she sensed someone entering the kitchen. "That smells incredible," Alex said, approaching the stove where she worked. "It's a red wine reduction for tonight," she explained, stirring carefully, "with local blackberries and a hint of rosemary. Perfect with the venison," he noted. "How's everything going so far?" The team raved about lunch. "No complaints yet," Natalie said, allowing herself a small smile of satisfaction. "Though the real test will be dinner. That's when people notice the details." "I've never doubted your attention to detail," he said. "It's why I chose Gourmet Grace." The way he said it made Natalie pause. "You chose us. I thought the procurement department handled the arrangements." Alex looked momentarily caught off guard, then smiled smoothly. "I meant Reed Foods, of course. I was on the selection committee." Before she could question further, one of the lodge staff appeared at the door. "Mr. Reed, they're ready for your presentation in the main hall." Natalie nearly dropped her wooden spoon. She turned to stare at the man she'd been chatting with so casually. "You're Alexander Reed, the CEO." He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Just Alex, please." "I should have been clearer earlier. I hope you're not upset." "Not upset," Natalie said carefully, mentally replaying their earlier interactions. "Just surprised. I assumed I'd be dealing with event coordinators, not the CEO himself." "I take a personal interest in certain aspects of our company retreats," he said, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer than necessary. "Especially the food. I believe what we eat together shapes the experience." With that cryptic statement, he excused himself for his presentation, leaving Natalie to wonder why the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company was spending his time checking on the caterer. Dinner that evening was a resounding success. Natalie had designed a menu showcasing the best local autumn ingredients, starting with a butternut squash soup with apple cider reduction, followed by the venison with her blackberry reduction, accompanied by roasted root vegetables and wild rice pilaf. Dessert was a deconstructed apple crumble with house-made cinnamon ice cream. She supervised the lodge staff from the kitchen, only occasionally peeking into the dining room to ensure everything was presented correctly. Each time she looked, she found Alex's gaze somehow finding hers across the room, as if he'd been waiting for her to appear. After the meal, when the executives had moved to the lodge's great room for drinks, Alex appeared in the kitchen doorway again. "Would the chef care to receive compliments in person?" he asked. "Everyone is raving about the meal." Natalie wiped her hands on a towel, suddenly conscious of her chef's coat with a small splash of sauce on the sleeve. "That's kind, but I should stay and oversee cleanup." "We have an early start tomorrow." "Just for a few minutes," he insisted. "Some of the team specifically asked to thank you." Unable to find a polite way to refuse, Natalie followed him into the great room, where executives lounged in leather armchairs around a massive stone fireplace. To her surprise, several did approach to compliment specific dishes, asking knowledgeable questions about ingredients and techniques. "Our team takes food seriously," Alex explained, handing her a glass of wine. "Many of them started in culinary fields before moving into corporate roles." "That explains the detailed menu requirements," Natalie said, taking a small sip of what turned out to be an excellent Pinot Noir. "Actually, those came from me," Alex admitted. "I may have been very specific about what I wanted for this retreat." Natalie raised an eyebrow. "Most CEOs delegate menu planning to their assistants." "I'm not most CEOs," he said, echoing his earlier words. His eyes, reflecting the firelight, seemed to convey something beyond professional appreciation. "So I'm learning," Natalie replied, feeling a strange flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with hunger. "Though I'm still not sure why Reed Foods chose a boutique catering company like mine when you could have had your pick of celebrity chefs." "I have my reasons," Alex said mysteriously. "None of which you'll regret, I promise." Before she could press further, he was called away by an executive, leaving Natalie with her wine and her confusion. She finished her glass quickly and returned to the kitchen, telling herself the warmth she felt was from the excellent wine and the fireplace, not from the way Alexander Reed looked at her. The next morning dawned clear and crisp. Natalie arrived in the kitchen at 5 a.m. to begin breakfast preparations. She was surprised to find a fresh pot of coffee already brewed and a note propped against it. "Thought you might need this. The local roast is excellent. A.R." The thoughtfulness of the gesture wasn't lost on her, especially when she tasted the coffee and found it was indeed exceptional. As she prepared breakfast, a buffet of artisanal pastries, a build-your-own omelet station, and seasonal fruit, she tried to make sense of Alexander Reed's unusual attentiveness. The executives were scheduled for team-building activities after breakfast, giving Natalie time to prepare for lunch and begin dinner preparations. She was deep in concentration, breaking down local trout for the evening meal when Alex appeared again. "The team is out doing trust falls or something equally torturous," he said, leaning against the counter. "I thought I'd escape while I could." "Hiding from your own corporate retreat?" Natalie asked, amused despite herself. "Strategic delegation," he corrected with a grin. "My COO excels at team building. I excel at other things. Like micromanaging the catering," she suggested boldly. Instead of taking offense, he laughed a rich, genuine sound that made her smile in response. "Touché, though I prefer to think of it as appreciating culinary artistry." "Flattery will get you nowhere," Natalie said, returning to her task. "Unless you're angling for extra dessert." "Actually, I was hoping to convince you to join me for a walk," he said. "The lodge has some beautiful trails and there's a view of the valley that's spectacular this time of year. Perfect for clearing your head between meal services." Natalie's hand stilled. "Are you asking me on a break, Mr. Reed?" "Alex," he corrected gently. "And yes, I suppose I am. You've been working non-stop since you arrived yesterday. Everyone needs fresh air occasionally, even dedicated chefs." She considered refusing. Maintaining professional boundaries seemed important, but the kitchen was well ahead of schedule, and the prospect of fresh mountain air was tempting. 20 minutes, she conceded. "Let me finish this prep work first." 30 minutes later, they were walking along a forest trail, the October sunlight filtering through gold and crimson leaves. Natalie had exchanged her chef's coat for a light jacket, though she still felt self-conscious about her work attire next to Alex's casual elegance. "So how does a CEO find time to personally oversee catering arrangements?" she asked as they climbed a gentle slope. "Don't you have companies to acquire or something?" "I make time for things that matter," he replied simply. "Food brings people together in a way nothing else can. The right meal can transform a routine business meeting into a meaningful connection." "Is that what this retreat is about? Meaningful connections?" "Among other things," he said, his expression thoughtful. "Reed Foods is at a crucial point. We're expanding internationally next year, which means changes for everyone. This retreat is about preparing the team for that journey, reminding them we're in this together." "And excellent food is part of that strategy?" Natalie asked. "Absolutely," Alex confirmed. "Breaking bread together is humanity's oldest way of building trust, but more than that." He hesitated. "I selected Gourmet Grace specifically because of your philosophy. Food made with intention and integrity, isn't that your tagline?" Natalie looked at him in surprise. "You've really done your homework. Like I said, I take certain things very seriously." They reached a clearing where the view opened up to reveal the valley spread before them, a tapestry of autumn colors stretching to distant mountains. "What do you think? Worth the climb?" "It's breathtaking," Natalie admitted, taking in the panorama. The beauty of it made her momentarily forget the strangeness of hiking with a millionaire CEO she'd met just yesterday. "My grandfather used to bring me here as a child," Alex said, his voice softening with memory. "Before Reed Foods became what it is today, when it was just a small family business. He'd pack these elaborate picnics. He never did anything halfway with food and tell me stories about the company he dreamed of building." "You were close to him," Natalie observed, touched by the personal revelation. "He raised me after my parents died," Alex said simply. "Everything I know about business and food I learned from him." "Is that why you're so involved with the catering, honoring his memory?" "Partly," Alex admitted. "But also," he turned to face her directly, "I've been following your work for some time, Natalie. Gourmet Grace has developed quite a reputation for excellence in a relatively short time. Your farm-to-table approach, your commitment to local producers, it aligns perfectly with where I want to take Reed Foods. You've been following my catering company, Natalie asked, unsure whether to be flattered or concerned. I first tasted your food at the Chapman Foundation Gala last spring, he explained. You probably don't remember, it was a massive event with hundreds of guests, but I never forgot the wild mushroom arancini you served. I asked the event planner who had catered, and she raved about you. That was one of our first major events, Natalie said, memories flooding back. I was terrified the whole night. It didn't show in the food, Alex assured her. After that, I may have made a point of attending a few events where Gourmet Grace was catering. Purely for research purposes, of course. Of course, Natalie echoed, not quite believing him. And now you've hired us for your most important corporate retreat of the year. Now I've hired you, he confirmed, his eyes holding hers. And I'm very glad I did, especially since I get to enjoy your company as well as your cooking. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Natalie wasn't ready to name. She broke eye contact first, checking her watch. I should get back. Lunch service starts in an hour. Of course, Alex said, easily shifting back to a more professional tone. I've kept you long enough, though I hope we can continue our conversation later. As they walked back to the lodge, Natalie tried to make sense of what was happening. Alexander Reed was undeniably attractive, intelligent, and seemingly interested in her. But he was also a client, her biggest client, and she'd built her business on professionalism. Getting personally involved with him during a contract would be crossing a line she'd never approached before. Yet she couldn't deny the connection she felt, or the way her pulse quickened when he looked at her with those intense blue eyes. Back in the kitchen, Natalie threw herself into lunch preparations, hoping physical activity would clear her head. But even as she worked, she found herself watching the door, anticipating Alex's next appearance. He didn't disappoint. Throughout the 3-day retreat, he found reasons to visit the kitchen, sometimes offering to test a sauce, other times just bringing her a fresh cup of coffee or telling her about the executive's reactions to her latest creation. Each interaction deepened her impression that his interest went beyond professional appreciation, but he maintained a careful balance, never crossing the line into overt flirtation. By the final evening of the retreat, Natalie found herself both anticipating and dreading the end of their time together. She had poured everything into the farewell dinner, a sophisticated 7-course tasting menu that showcased the best of her culinary abilities. Each dish told a story about local ingredients and traditional techniques reimagined with modern flair. As the final dessert plates were cleared, Alex rose to address his team. From her vantage point at the kitchen door, Natalie watched him command the room effortlessly. Before we close this retreat, he was saying, I want to thank the person who has made these 3 days not just productive, but genuinely memorable. Natalie Wilson of Gourmet Grace Catering has shown us exactly what it means to create experiences that honor both tradition and innovation values at the very heart of Reed Foods. He gestured toward the kitchen, and suddenly all eyes were on her. Natalie, would you join us for a moment? Caught off guard, Natalie hesitantly stepped into the dining room. The executives broke into spontaneous applause, many raising their glasses in her direction. Alex crossed to her side, his expression warm with appreciation that seemed to extend beyond her culinary contributions. To Natalie, he said, raising his own glass, who stepped in at the last minute and exceeded every expectation. Your dedication to craft and quality is exactly what we aspire to at Reed Foods. The toast was met with enthusiasm, and Natalie found herself momentarily overwhelmed by the genuine appreciation. "Thank you all," she managed. "It's been a pleasure cooking for people who truly appreciate food." As the executives began to disperse for the evening, Alex touched her elbow lightly. "Do you have a moment to talk privately?" he asked. "Perhaps on the terrace." "The night is unseasonably warm." Natalie hesitated but nodded. "Let me just check on the kitchen cleanup first." 10 minutes later, having confirmed that everything was under control, she joined Alex on the stone terrace overlooking the moonlit valley. He had brought 2 glasses and a bottle of champagne. "I hope you don't mind," he said, gesturing to the champagne. It seemed appropriate to celebrate the success of the retreat. "Is that what we're doing? Celebrating the retreat?" Natalie asked, accepting a glass. Alex considered her for a moment, his expression unreadable in the moonlight. "Among other things," he finally said, "to successful collaborations." He clinked his glass gently against hers. The champagne was excellent, crisp and complex, with notes of apple and brioche. Of course it was. Natalie doubted Alexander Reed had ever served mediocre champagne in his life. "I have a confession to make," he said after they had both savored the first sip. "One that might make you question my professional judgment." "That sounds ominous," Natalie said, suddenly wary. "Not ominous, just unorthodox." He set his glass down and turned to face her fully. "The truth is, I didn't select Gourmet Grace for this retreat solely based on your culinary reputation, excellent though it is." "No," Natalie prompted when he paused. "No," he confirmed. "I chose your company because I wanted to meet you, Natalie. Properly meet you, not just exchange pleasantries at a crowded event." Natalie blinked, processing his words. "You arranged a corporate retreat worth thousands of dollars to meet me." "When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous," Alex admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "But yes, essentially. Though the retreat itself was always planned and your company's qualifications are genuinely impeccable." "I don't understand," Natalie said, though a part of her was beginning to. "The first time I saw you was at the Chapman Gala," Alex explained. "You came out briefly when the foundation director insisted on thanking you publicly. You looked uncomfortable with the attention but passionate when you spoke about the local farmers who had supplied the ingredients. I was intrigued. So you stalked my catering company?" Natalie asked, though there was no real accusation in her tone. "I made inquiries," he corrected. "Professional ones at first, but the more I learned about you and your business philosophy, the more I wanted to know you personally. Why not just ask me out like a normal person?" Natalie challenged, though her pulse was racing at his revelation. "Would you have said yes?" Alex countered. "The millionaire CEO of a major corporation randomly calls and asks you to dinner. You seem like the type who would be suspicious of that approach." He wasn't wrong, Natalie had to admit. "So instead, you engineered this elaborate scenario where I'm professionally obligated to interact with you for 3 days. I engineered an opportunity for us to get to know each other in a context where you could see who I really am, not just what I am," Alex said. "And where I could see if my instincts about you were correct." "And were they?" Natalie asked softly. Alex stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "They were. You're even more extraordinary than I imagined, Natalie Wilson. Talented, dedicated, principled, and completely unimpressed by wealth or status. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "I'm just a chef with a small catering company." "You're a visionary who's built a business around your values," he corrected. "Just like my grandfather did, he would have adored you." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Natalie felt the last of her defenses weakening. "This is crazy," she murmured. "We barely know each other." "I disagree," Alex said. I've learned more about you in these 3 days than I know about people I've worked with for years, and I'd like the chance to learn more." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but assured. "Have dinner with me tomorrow, not as a caterer, not as a client. Just two people who I think might have something special to explore." Natalie looked down at their joined hands, then back up to his face. In the moonlight, with the grand setting of the lodge behind him, he looked like something from a fantasy the handsome millionaire captivated by the ordinary chef. But the warmth of his hand in hers was real, as was the connection she'd felt growing between them. "One condition," she said finally. "Name it." "I cook," Natalie stated. "At my place. No luxury restaurants, no VIP treatment. If you want to get to know the real me, it starts in my kitchen." Alex's smile was immediate and genuine. "Nothing would make me happier, though I should warn you I might be a harsh critic." "I think I can handle it," Natalie replied, returning his smile with a confidence that surprised her. "After all, I've already catered the most demanding event of my career." "The Reed Foods retreat?" "No," she said with a teasing glint in her eyes. "The first date with Alexander Reed." He laughed, the sound rich and appreciative in the night air. Then, with a gentleness that contrasted with his commanding presence, he lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "Until tomorrow, then. I'm already looking forward to it." As Natalie looked up at him, the moonlight silvering his dark hair, she had the distinct feeling that her life had just taken an unexpected and potentially wonderful turn. The next evening, Natalie surveyed her apartment with critical eyes. She'd spent the morning deep cleaning, though her place was never truly messy. As a chef, orderliness was second nature. Still, there was a difference between tidy and date-ready, especially when the date in question was Alexander Reed. Her home reflected her personality, a cozy one-bedroom with an upgraded kitchen that consumed nearly half the square footage. The living area was small but welcoming, with bookshelves filled with cookbooks and food memoirs, comfortable furniture in earth tones, and photographs of European food markets she'd visited during her culinary training. Nothing about it screamed luxury or sophistication, but it was authentically hers. And that was the point of this evening: authentic connection, not impression management. In the kitchen, she had everything prepped for their meal. She decided on a menu that showcased her philosophy without being pretentious. A starter of fresh burrata with heirloom tomatoes and basil from her windowsill garden. Homemade pappardelle with a slow-cooked duck ragu for the main course, and a simple olive oil cake with seasonal berries for dessert. She'd also selected 2 bottles of wine, good, but not extravagant, though she suspected Alex might bring his own. The doorbell rang precisely at 7. Natalie took a deep breath, smoothed her simple navy dress, and opened the door. Alex stood there in tailored dark jeans and a crisp white shirt, holding a bottle of wine and a small bouquet of wildflowers. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said, leaning in to kiss her cheek, a gesture that felt both courtly and intimate. "These are for you." "Thank you," Natalie said, accepting both gifts. The wildflowers were clearly fresh-picked, not a florist's arrangement. "Did you gather these yourself?" "On the drive back from the lodge," he admitted. "There's a meadow about halfway down the mountain that was too perfect to pass up." "I hope you don't mind something less formal than roses." "They're perfect," Natalie assured him, genuinely touched by the thoughtfulness. She led him inside, suddenly seeing her modest apartment through new eyes. "It's not exactly what you're used to, I'm sure." Alex looked around with obvious interest. "It's exactly what I hoped for," he said. "A real home, not a showpiece." He walked to her bookshelves, running his fingers along the spines of her cookbooks. "First edition Elizabeth David," he noted, pulling out one volume carefully. My grandfather had this same copy. You know her work? Natalie asked, surprised. I have lived in the Mediterranean for over 5 years and have come to the conclusion that the mildness of the climate induces a directly corresponding mildness in the character. Alex quoted from memory. One of his favorite passages. Mine too, Natalie said softly, realizing again that there was much more to Alexander Reed than his business acumen or wealth. Would you like a tour? It won't take long. The whole place would fit in your lodge's great room. I'd love one, he said sincerely. The tour took all of 3 minutes, ending in her pride enjoy the kitchen, where appetizers were already arranged and wine was breathing. Now this, Alex said, looking around appreciatively at her well-organized culinary workspace, is impressive. You can tell a lot about a chef from their personal kitchen. And what does mine tell you? Natalie asked, genuinely curious. That you're serious but not pretentious. That functionality matters more than showing off, and that you cook with joy, not just precision. He picked up a well-worn wooden spoon from a crock of utensils. This has seen a lot of love. It was my grandmother's, Natalie explained. She taught me to cook. Not professionally, she was just a fantastic home cook who never measured anything and always made enough to feed an army. The best kind, Alex agreed. My grandfather was professionally trained, but he always said he learned the most important lessons at his own grandmother's apron strings. As they talked, Natalie opened the wine. Alex had brought an excellent small production Barolo that paired perfectly with her duck ragu. They moved easily from the kitchen to her small dining table, the conversation flowing as naturally as the wine. Alex told her about growing up in the Reed family business, helping his grandfather in their first warehouse as a teenager, learning every aspect of food distribution from the ground up. Most people assume I was handed everything, he said, twirling pasta around his fork. They don't realize I spent years driving delivery trucks and managing inventory before I ever set foot in the executive suite. It shows, Natalie observed. You understand the practical side of the business, not just the financial aspects. That's rare in inherited companies. Nothing was guaranteed, Alex explained. My grandfather made it clear I needed to earn my position. Reed Foods may have had my name, but it wouldn't automatically have my leadership. That explains why you're so hands-on, Natalie said, even with catering decisions. Especially with catering decisions, he agreed with a warm smile. Food is the heart of our business, even as we've expanded. If we lose our connection to quality and integrity there, we lose everything that matters. As they finished the main course, Alex insisted on helping clear the table, despite Natalie's protests. My grandfather would roll over in his grave if I sat like a prince while you did all the work, he insisted. They settled into a comfortable rhythm in her small kitchen, Alex washing while Natalie dried and put things away. The domesticity of the moment wasn't lost on either of them. This is nice, Alex said quietly, handing her a clean wineglass. Normal. Do you know how rarely my life feels normal? I can imagine, Natalie said, though probably not accurately. This is why I wanted to meet you here, not at some 5-star restaurant where the staff would be falling over themselves once they recognized me, Alex explained. I wanted a chance to just be Alex, not Alexander Reed, CEO. Well, just Alex, Natalie said with a playful smile. You're an excellent dishwasher. I might have to hire you for my next catering gig. I accept, he said immediately, though my hourly rate might shock you. They laughed together, and Natalie was struck by how comfortable she felt with him, despite the vast differences in their lives. As they settled on her small sofa with dessert and coffee, the last of her reservations about his intentions began to fade. I have a confession, she said, setting down her dessert plate. I Googled you after I got home last night, extensively. Find anything interesting? Alex asked, seeming more amused than concerned. Several profiles calling you a business maverick and ethical industry disruptor, Natalie said. A few society page mentions with various glamorous dates, and a surprising number of articles about your work with sustainable food systems. Ah, the sustainable food initiatives, Alex nodded. That's the work I'm most proud of, actually. Reed Foods has been partnering with small farmers and producers to create more ethical supply chains. It's not always the most profitable approach in the short term, but it's the right thing to do. That's what struck me, Natalie admitted. You seem to genuinely care about the same things I do: quality, sustainability, supporting local food systems. It's not just marketing for you. It never has been, Alex said seriously. My grandfather built Reed Foods on relationships with producers who were treated fairly and valued for their craft. I'm just expanding that vision. He hesitated, then added, It's one of the reasons I was so drawn to you and your company. You embody that same philosophy, just on a different scale. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Natalie felt something shift between them, a deepening connection beyond physical attraction or interesting conversation. So what happens now? She asked softly. After tonight, I mean. You go back to running your empire, I go back to my catering business. We live in completely different worlds, Alex. Do we? He challenged gently. Or do we just operate at different scales within the same world, the world of people who believe food matters, who believe in doing business with integrity? He reached for her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. I'd like to find out where this could go, Natalie. No pressure, no expectations, just two people exploring something that feels important. The warmth of his touch sent a pleasant shiver through her. I'd like that too, she admitted. Though I have to warn you, my schedule is chaotic. Weekends are my busiest time and 14-hour days are normal. I understand demanding work, Alex assured her. We'll find ways to make it work. If it matters enough, you make the time. His confidence was compelling, but Natalie still had doubts. And the fact that you're you, Alexander Reed, Millionaire CEO, that doesn't complicate things. Only if we let it, he said simply. I'm just a man who's very interested in getting to know an extraordinary woman better. The rest is circumstantial. Put that way, it seemed almost reasonable, almost possible. Natalie looked into his eyes and saw nothing but genuine interest and warmth. Okay, she said finally. Let's see where this goes. Alex's smile was worth every doubt she'd pushed aside. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. But Natalie found herself meeting him halfway, their lips coming together in a kiss that was gentle yet electric with possibility. When they finally parted, Alex's expression was one of wonder. I've been wanting to do that since I first saw you in the lodge kitchen, he confessed. I'm glad you waited, Natalie replied. It was worth it. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of carefully coordinated schedules and unexpected moments of connection. True to his word, Alex respected her work commitments, never pressuring her to rearrange her catering schedule to accommodate his corporate life. Instead, he found creative ways to spend time together around her obligations. Sometimes he would appear at her commercial kitchen late in the evening, as she finished prep for the next day's events, bringing takeout from interesting local restaurants he'd discovered. Other times, he'd clear his Sunday morning schedule, the only consistent downtime in her week, for brunch at out-of-the-way cafes where they could talk for hours without interruption. Despite his wealth and status, Alex seemed genuinely content with these simple dates. He never pushed for glamorous outings or exclusive experiences, though occasionally he did surprise her with his connections. I got us reservations at Terroir next Saturday, he mentioned casually one evening as they walked through a farmer's market. Terroir was the most sought-after restaurant in the city, with a 6-month waiting list. How did you manage that? Natalie asked, though she suspected the answer. I may have gone to culinary school with the chef, Alex admitted. Before I took over the family business, I spent a year at Le Cordon Bleu. Daniel was in my class. We've kept in touch. These revelations about his past continued to surprise and delight her. Beyond his business acumen and wealth, Alex was a man of genuine passion for food, with a network that extended throughout the culinary world not because of his money, but because of his knowledge and appreciation. For her part, Natalie found herself opening up about her own journey, the challenges of building a catering business from scratch, the financial gambles she'd taken, the clients who had believed in her when Gourmet Grace was just a concept scribbled in a notebook. I nearly gave up in the first year, she admitted one Sunday morning as they sat in her favorite corner cafe. I'd maxed out 2 credit cards, my car kept breaking down during deliveries, and a corporate client canceled a huge order at the last minute, leaving me with ingredients I'd already paid for. What kept you going? Alex asked, his hand warm around hers on the table. Stubbornness, mostly, Natalie laughed. And this ridiculous belief that if I could just get people to taste my food, they'd understand what I was trying to create. Not ridiculous at all, Alex said. That's exactly what happened. Your food speaks for itself. As weeks turned into months, their relationship deepened beyond their shared passion for food. Natalie discovered Alex's dry sense of humor, his tendency to work too late when engrossed in a project, his genuine concern for his employees that extended beyond corporate rhetoric. He learned about her close relationship with her younger sister in California, her collection of vintage cookbooks, and her secret dream of one day opening a small restaurant focused entirely on seasonal tasting menus. They had disagreements too, sometimes about trivial things like whether truffles were overrated. Alex was for, Natalie against. Other times about more significant issues like work-life balance and the role of technology in food service. But even their arguments felt productive, each challenging the other's assumptions without malice. 4 months into their relationship, Alex invited Natalie to accompany him to a food industry conference in Chicago, where he was giving the keynote address. It would be their first public appearance together in professional circles, and Natalie was apprehensive. Everyone will know who you are, she pointed out as they discussed the trip, and they'll wonder who I am. You're Natalie Wilson, owner and executive chef of Gourmet Grace Catering, Alex said matter-of-factly. Anyone who knows anything about the regional food scene knows your reputation. And they'll also assume I'm sleeping with you to advance my business, Natalie countered bluntly. Alex's expression turned serious. If anyone even hints at that, they'll never work in food distribution again, he said, an edge of steel in his voice she rarely heard. That's not the point, Natalie sighed. And threatening to ruin people doesn't exactly help the power dynamic concerns. Alex ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as a sign of frustration. You're right, I'm sorry. He sat beside her on her sofa, taking her hands in his. What would make you comfortable? We can attend separately if you prefer. Your work stands on its own merit, Natalie. You don't need me for validation. His willingness to step back touched her. No, I want to go with you, she decided. I'm proud to be with you, Alex. I just need to know that you understand the optics might be complicated. I understand, he assured her, and I respect your concerns. We'll navigate it together, however you want to handle it. The conference proved both challenging and affirming. There were curious looks and whispers, certainly, but Alex's obvious respect for her professional expertise deferring to her opinion during panel discussions. Introducing her to industry leaders as a culinary innovator made it clear their relationship was one of equals, despite the differences in their business scale. By the final evening of the conference, Natalie found herself relaxing into her dual role as both industry professional and Alexander Reed's partner. At the closing gala, she wore a simple but elegant black dress, feeling confident as they moved through the crowd together. "Alexander Reed with a +1, commented an older man who approached them at the reception. "Now that's a rare sight." "Thomas," Alex greeted him with professional warmth. "Allow me to introduce Natalie Wilson of Gourmet Grace Catering." "Natalie, this is Thomas Brennan, one of our largest distribution partners on the East Coast." "The Natalie Wilson?" Thomas asked with raised eyebrows. "I've heard remarkable things about your farm-to-table approach. Several of our restaurant clients have mentioned your work." "That's very kind," Natalie replied, surprised by the recognition. "Not kind, just accurate," Thomas assured her. "In fact, I've been meaning to speak with someone about our boutique distribution program for smaller-scale producers. We're looking to highlight more artisanal operations, and your network of suppliers might be exactly what we need." As Thomas explained the program, Natalie realized this was a significant business opportunity, one based on her own merits and connections, not her relationship with Alex. When Thomas excused himself after exchanging contact information, she turned to Alex with wonder. "Did you arrange that?" she asked suspiciously. "Arrange what?" Alex seemed genuinely confused. "That business opportunity. Did you tell him to approach me?" "Absolutely not," Alex said firmly. "Thomas is notoriously independent. He wouldn't discuss a potential partnership he didn't genuinely want to pursue, especially not as a favor to me." Natalie studied his face, finding only sincerity. "So that was real. He actually knows my work." "Of course it was real," Alex said, squeezing her hand. "Natalie, you're respected in this industry because you've earned it. Being with me might get you a few more introductions, but it would never get you respect you hadn't earned." Something shifted in that moment, a lingering insecurity melting away. Natalie realized she had been holding back a part of herself, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for their worlds to prove incompatible. But here they were, moving through Alex's professional sphere together, and she was being valued for her own expertise. Later that night, in the privacy of their hotel suite, Natalie expressed this realization to Alex as they stood looking out at the Chicago skyline. "I've been afraid," she admitted. "Afraid that eventually the novelty of dating a regular chef would wear off, that you'd want someone who fits more naturally into your world." Alex turned her to face him, his expression serious. "There's nothing regular about you, Natalie Wilson. And I'm not interested in someone who fits into some predefined role in my life. I'm interested in you, your passion, your principles, your extraordinary talent." He cupped her face gently. "I'm in love with you, all of you." It was the first time either had said those words, though the feeling had been growing between them for months. Natalie felt tears spring to her eyes as the truth of her own emotions crystallized. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have since that walk in the mountains at the retreat." Alex's kiss was tender and reverent, a promise without words. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "You know, this wasn't how I planned our first I love you," he admitted with a soft laugh. "You had a plan?" Natalie asked, curious. "Of course I did," Alex said, his eyes twinkling. "I'm a very methodical person, but some things can't be scheduled even by a control freak like me." "I like this version better," Natalie told him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "It feels real, unplanned, just like us." The remainder of their Chicago trip felt like a true turning point. Their relationship had moved beyond the getting-to-know-you phase into something deeper and more committed. By the time they returned home, they had fallen into a pattern of staying at each other's places several nights a week, their lives intertwining naturally despite their different schedules. 6 months into their relationship, Natalie faced her biggest catering challenge since the Reed Foods retreat, a prestigious charity gala for 500 guests, with a last-minute venue change that threw her carefully laid plans into chaos. She was in her commercial kitchen at 5 a.m., revising prep schedules and calling in favors from every culinary contact she had, when Alex appeared with coffee and determination. "Put me to work," he said simply, rolling up his sleeves. "And don't argue you need hands and mine are available." "Don't you have a board meeting today?" Natalie asked, though she was already mentally calculating how his help could save precious time. "Rescheduled," he said. "This is more important." For the next 14 hours, Alex worked alongside her team, chopping vegetables, assembling canapés, and even driving to pick up last-minute supplies when one of her vendors delivered the wrong items. He took direction without ego, deferring completely to her authority in the kitchen, his only goal to support her success. By the time the gala was underway, with servers circulating Natalie's meticulously prepared food among the city's elite, she was exhausted but triumphant. The event was a success despite the setbacks, and she knew a significant part of that success was due to Alex's unwavering support. Later that night, as they finally returned to her apartment after the last dishes were washed and put away, Natalie collapsed onto her sofa in exhausted gratitude. "I can't believe you spent your day doing prep work," she marveled. "You could have sent a team of professional chefs to help me." "But then I wouldn't have gotten to see you in your element," Alex said, sitting beside her and pulling her feet into his lap to massage them gently. "You were magnificent today, Natalie. The way you adapted to every challenge, kept your team motivated, refused to compromise on quality even under pressure, it was inspiring." "It was just another day in catering," she demurred, though his praise warmed her. "It was leadership," Alex countered. "The same qualities I try to bring to Reed Foods, just in a different context." He hesitated, then added, "Actually, I've been thinking about that context a lot lately." "What do you mean?" Natalie asked, curious about his thoughtful tone. "I mean that watching you build Gourmet Grace, seeing your direct impact on your clients and your team, it's made me think about scale and satisfaction." His hands continued their gentle work on her feet as he spoke. "Reed Foods has grown so large that sometimes I feel disconnected from the day-to-day realities of food service. I'm in boardrooms discussing distribution logistics more often than I'm talking about actual food." "That's the nature of growth, isn't it?" Natalie observed. "The bigger the operation, the more removed the leadership becomes." "Yes, but that doesn't mean it's inevitable or desirable," Alex said. "I've been developing a new division within Reed Foods, a boutique arm focused on direct relationships with small producers and specialized food businesses like yours. More hands-on, more aligned with my grandfather's original vision." "That sounds wonderful," Natalie said sincerely. "But why are you telling me this now?" Alex's hands stilled on her feet. "Because I want you to consider being part of it, Natalie. Not just as my partner in life, but as a professional collaborator. Your expertise in farm-to-table sourcing, your network of small producers, your understanding of what makes a meaningful food experience, they're exactly what this new venture needs." Natalie sat up straight, suddenly alert despite her exhaustion. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm suggesting a partnership," Alex clarified. "One that would allow you to expand Gourmet Grace's impact while maintaining your independence. You'd consult on sourcing, quality control, and artisanal producer relationships. Your brand would remain yours, but with Reed Foods' resources behind it. The offer was unexpected but intriguing. "And what about us?" Natalie asked. "Working together, being together, that's a lot of togetherness, Alex. Too much?" he asked, watching her carefully. Natalie considered the question seriously. "Actually, no," she realized. "Today showed me we work well together professionally. You respected my authority in my domain, and I value your business acumen. We balance each other." "That's what I thought too," Alex said, relief evident in his voice. "But I want you to take time to consider it. This isn't something to decide when you're exhausted from the longest day in catering history." Natalie laughed, the sound turning into a yawn. "Fair point, but I'm intrigued, definitely intrigued." "Good," Alex said, pulling her close. "Because I have another proposition that's even more important to me." "Another one?" Natalie raised an eyebrow. "You're full of ideas tonight." "Just one more," Alex assured her. "But it can wait until tomorrow when you're not about to fall asleep mid-sentence." "Now you've got me curious," Natalie protested, fighting another yawn. "Tomorrow," Alex insisted, kissing her forehead. "After you've had at least 8 hours of sleep and a decent breakfast." The next morning, Natalie woke to the smell of coffee and something delicious baking. She found Alex in her kitchen, skillfully removing a tray of perfectly golden croissants from the oven. "Did you make those from scratch?" she asked incredulously, noting the flour dusting the countertop. "I did," he confirmed with a proud smile. "I may have gotten up at 5 a.m. to start the lamination process. Some things can't be rushed." "You continue to surprise me, Alexander Reed," Natalie said, accepting the cup of coffee he offered. "I had no idea you could make proper French pastry." "There's a lot you don't know about me yet," he replied with a mysterious smile. "But I hope you'll take a lifetime to find out." The words registered slowly as Natalie sipped her coffee. When their implication finally sank in, she looked up to find Alex watching her with an expression of nervous anticipation, an emotion she'd rarely seen on his confident face. "Alex?" she questioned softly. "I had a whole speech planned," he said, taking the coffee cup from her hands and setting it aside. "About how meeting you has changed everything, how you've reminded me what matters most in business and in life. About how I've never met anyone who challenges me, supports me, and inspires me the way you do." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "But this morning, watching you sleep after everything you accomplished yesterday, I realized no speech could possibly capture what I feel for you." Natalie's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a stunning yet understated ring, a cushion-cut diamond, in a vintage-inspired setting that somehow perfectly captured her personal style. "Natalie Wilson," Alex said, dropping to one knee in her flour-dusted kitchen. "I know it's only been 8 months, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you, your passion, your integrity, your extraordinary talent, and your beautiful heart. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears sprang to Natalie's eyes as the full-circle nature of the moment struck her. "You planned our wedding before we even met, didn't you?" she asked, remembering his confession about engineering their meeting at the retreat. Alex had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Not exactly," he admitted. "But I may have hoped for this outcome from the first moment I saw you." "Too presumptuous." "Completely," Natalie agreed, but she was smiling through her tears. "And also completely wonderful." She pulled him to his feet, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Yes, Alexander Reid, yes, I will marry you." The kiss they shared tasted of coffee and future promises. When they finally parted, Alex slipped the ring onto her finger with visible emotion. "Perfect fit," Natalie noted. "How did you know my size?" I may have borrowed one of your rings temporarily, Alex confessed. The one you keep in the small dish by the sink when you're cooking. Sneaky, she accused fondly. Any other surprises I should know about? Just one, Alex said, looking slightly apprehensive again. I hope you'll like it, but if not, we can change everything. What is it? Natalie asked, curious about his sudden nervousness. I bought the old Hargrove estate on the river, he revealed. The one with the orchard and the historic farmhouse that needs restoration. I know you've always talked about wanting land to grow your own ingredients someday, and it has that magnificent kitchen with the original hearth and enough space for both of us to work when we need to. But also, Natalie stopped his nervous explanation with another kiss. The Hargrove place. With the stone walls and the meadow view. Alex, it's perfect. I've driven by it for years dreaming about what I'd do with that property. Really? The relief in his voice was palpable. I thought it could be our home, but also potentially the site for that small seasonal restaurant you've talked about opening someday. The carriage house could be converted, and there's enough land for extensive gardens. As Alex outlined his vision, Natalie felt a surge of love so powerful it nearly overwhelmed her. This man, this remarkable, thoughtful man, had listened to every dream she'd shared, every passion she'd expressed, and found a way to help make them possible without taking over or diminishing her independence. I love it, she said simply, when he finally paused. I love the house, I love the plan, and most of all, I love you. Over a breakfast of still warm croissants, they began planning their future together, a future that would blend their shared passion for food with their individual strengths and visions. The professional partnership Alex had proposed would allow Natalie to expand Gourmet Grace's reach, while maintaining her autonomy and eventually opening the small, specialized restaurant she'd always dreamed of running. Meanwhile, Alex would develop Reed Foods' artisanal division, returning to the hands-on approach to quality that had inspired him as a young man working alongside his grandfather. They decided on a spring wedding at the Hargrove estate, once the initial renovations were complete. It would be catered, of course, by Natalie's trusted team at Gourmet Grace, with special contributions from chef friends they'd both made throughout their careers. You know, Natalie said as they cleared the breakfast dishes together, some people might say this is all happening very fast. Some people haven't seen us together in a kitchen, Alex countered, or watched how perfectly we complement each other in work and in life. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. When it's right, you know. My grandfather always said he proposed to my grandmother after 3 weeks. They were married for 52 years. I hope we beat their record, Natalie said, turning in his arms to face him. We will, Alex promised, his expression serious. This is just the beginning, Natalie. The very best beginning I could have imagined. As they sealed the promise with another kiss, Natalie thought about the strange, wonderful journey that had led them to this moment, from a last-minute catering assignment to a lifetime commitment. All because one determined man had recognized something special in her and created the perfect opportunity for them to meet. I still can't believe you orchestrated that whole corporate retreat just to meet me, she said, shaking her head in amazement. Best business decision I ever made, Alex replied without hesitation. Though I have to admit, I never expected to find myself washing dishes and chopping vegetables 6 months later. Get used to it, Mr. Reed, Natalie teased. Marriage to a chef comes with kitchen duties included. I wouldn't have it any other way, future Mrs. Reed, he answered, his eyes shining with love and promise. Not any other way at all. 1 year later, Natalie stood in what was once the Hargrove Estate's carriage house, now transformed into an intimate 30-seat restaurant called Hearth. The space honored the building's history with exposed beams and original stonework, but state-of-the-art kitchen equipment gleamed behind a chef's counter, where guests could watch their tasting menu being prepared. The restaurant had been open just 2 months, but was already developing a reputation for its hyper-seasonal approach, with menus that changed weekly based on what was available from their own gardens and local producers. Natalie divided her time between Hearth and the expanded Gourmet Grace, which now included a line of artisanal products distributed through Reed Food's specialty division. She was reviewing reservation notes for the evening service when familiar arms encircled her waist from behind. "Ready for tonight?" Alex asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. "Almost," Natalie replied, leaning back against her husband of 6 months. "Just finalizing the special menu for the Reed Foods international partners. Are you sure they don't want the regular tasting menu?" "They want the full Natalie Reed experience," Alex assured her. "After hearing me talk about your cooking for months, they're eager to taste what inspired me to create the artisanal division." Natalie turned to face him, adjusting his tie slightly, a habit she'd developed since their wedding. "Hard to believe it's been over a year since you tricked me into catering that retreat." "Not tricked," Alex protested with a grin, "strategically maneuvered." "Same difference," Natalie laughed. "Though I have to admit, your plan worked out rather well for both of us." "Better than I ever imagined," Alex agreed, his expression softening as he regarded his wife. "You've transformed Reed Foods as much as you've transformed my life, Natalie." "The artisanal division is already outperforming our projections. Hearth has a 3-month waiting list, and Gourmet Grace is becoming a recognized brand nationwide." "We make a good team," Natalie acknowledged, thinking of how seamlessly their professional and personal lives had melded. They maintained separate areas of expertise. Alex focused on business development and distribution, Natalie on culinary direction and quality control, but collaborated on overall vision and strategy. "The best team," Alex confirmed. "Though I'm thinking we might want to expand our roster in the near future." "Another restaurant?" Natalie asked, mentally reviewing their already full schedules. "I don't know, Alex. Hearth is still so new, and with the product line launching next quarter, not another restaurant," Alex interrupted gently, taking her hands in his. "A different kind of expansion." He placed one of her hands against his heart, a personal one. Understanding dawned in Natalie's eyes. "Oh," she breathed. "You mean?" "A family," Alex confirmed, his expression revealing how much the idea meant to him. "I know we're both incredibly busy and the timing might not be perfect, but yes," Natalie said simply, cutting off his careful reasoning. "Yes, I want that too. I've been thinking about it for months but wasn't sure if you were ready." The joy that spread across Alex's face was answer enough. "Really? You're sure?" "I'm sure," Natalie confirmed. "Our businesses are stable, the house renovations are complete, and—" She hesitated, then continued with a smile. "I've already been researching how to design a nursery that's both beautiful and practical for chef parents with unpredictable hours." Alex laughed, pulling her close. "Of course you have. Always prepared, my love." "I learned from the best," Natalie reminded him. "You're the one who planned an entire corporate retreat just to meet me." "And I'd do it all over again," Alex said seriously. "Every moment that led us here was worth it." As they shared a kiss in the restaurant they'd created together, Natalie reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past year and a half. From that first morning at Pinewood Lodge to this moment of planning their family's future, every step had felt both surprising and somehow inevitable, as though they'd been moving toward each other all along, just waiting for the right moment to connect. What had started as a catering job had become the greatest opportunity of her life, both personally and professionally. And the man who had orchestrated their meeting had become not just her husband, but her partner in every sense of the word. "I love you, Alexander Reed," she whispered against his lips. "And I love you, Natalie Reed," he replied, "more than any words could ever express." Outside the windows of Hearth, the gardens they'd planned together were bursting with early summer abundance, the first tangible fruits of their shared vision. Inside, they held each other, already imagining the family that would soon join them in the life they'd built from passion, respect, and a love that had begun with an unexpected catering assignment and a millionaire CEO who knew exactly what he wanted.